The controversy I have decided to look into is the exploitation of student athletes and how profits have taken over higher education. My research question is, as the cogs in a billion-dollar industry, should student athletes be able to compensate off of their image? Personally, I don't believe student athletes should be able to profit off of their image. However, some of the money from TV deals and other sponsorships should go to increase benefits for student athletes' health and education. The NCAA was founded to govern competition in a fair, safe, and sportsmanlike manner, and to integrate intercollegiate athletics into higher education so that the educational experience of the student athlete is paramount. However, higher education has turned into a highly commercialized, multi-billion-dollar industry. High-performance athletes are forgiven for not meeting the academic standards of their peers, and since they are students, they don't have to be compensated for anything more than the cost of their studies. This is how the term student athlete was derived. The value of a college degree is valued very highly by society, especially with tuition costs rising and high student debt after graduation. Still, the money keeps growing, with the combined revenue for the 5 major conferences growing 266% from 2005 to 2015. In 2015, the 53 public schools from the 5 major conferences paid their football coaching staffs 530 individuals, a combined $405.5 million, compared to $179.8 million in scholarships to their football players, which was almost 5,000 individuals. The NCAA has also been rocked with scandals and lawsuits that include fake classes at UNC, profiting off of student athletes' images in video games in the O'Bannon vs. NCAA case, and student athletes getting bribed under the table to attend a specific school, which is currently under investigation right now. Amateurism has been challenged vehemently, and whether or not a free ride is sufficient compensation for the work the student athletes put into their craft. Ever since I was in middle school, I have been an avid fan of college basketball. For some people, they start paying attention in March when everything gets exciting, or they don't care at all. For me, I am watching and following games throughout the season, as well as activities over the off-season. I live for college basketball season and to cheer on my teams, Tulane and the University of Virginia, where my dad is an alumni. I chose this topic because I see headlines and tweets all the time about how student athletes are being used by the NCAA for profits and how players just want some cash. Announcers talk about it on broadcasts and talk shows. Student athletes have been held down for a long time, and it is nearing its boiling point, especially with the internet's ability to bring people together. I wanted to dive deeper into something that I already know a lot about, but could still be more informed on. There's no stakes for me personally, but this controversy is one that is very important to me as an avid fan of college sports. People on the side of paying student athletes believe that student athletes are considered employers because of their commitment to their team and school. This argument is typically made by the athletes who aren't being compensated and those who share the athlete's pain. The typical Division I college football player devotes 43.3 hours per week to his sport, 3.3 more hours than the typical American work week. Tournament schedules and road games require athletes to miss class for televised games that bring in revenue. The NCAA produces $11 billion in annual revenue, more than the NHL and the NBA, both professional leagues. And in 40 of the 50 U.S. states, the highest paid public official is currently the head coach of a state university's football or men's basketball team. Supporting arguments for not paying athletes include scholarships not being enough compensation for students. The athletes from power conference schools who bring in the big money from TV deals and other merchandise and sponsorships get full rides and freebies such as housing, meals, clothing, medical care, and professional development, and they also don't accumulate any student debt. College is a time to learn, and whether a student wants to be an accountant or a professional athlete, they are not a professional when still in school. Students are not paid salaries like a professional, nor do they receive professional perks. As a student athlete, a student is able to gain access to a college education through the participation of their sport. A student athlete is an amateur, just like a student accountant, who is making a choice to participate in a sport as part of their overall educational experience. The NCAA is a nonprofit. The main goal of the NCAA is to offer educational service to the student athletes that it supports, and to give money to the schools where these students gain their education. The NCAA is a not-for-profit organization and is an association of member universities and colleges that share a common goal. Because of its status as a nonprofit, it would be confusing for it to be involved in paying athletes. Lastly, there is no fair way to pay student athletes, considering that schools wouldn't be able to afford to pay all of their players in their program. Most schools have over 20 varsity sports that often operate in the red. Schools are putting back out what they are bringing in scholarships and infrastructure to improve the program. Basketball and football players are the only ones that bring in a significant profit, so in a free market system, colleges would struggle to put teams on the court or field. I believe that there is no way for college sports to become a free market and for it to survive. Paying college athletes would completely ruin everything that college athletics stand for. Still, the fact that college athletes cannot make any money off of themselves due to NCAA rules is unfair and exploitative. The argument that a scholarship is enough is fair, but what percentage of college athletes are able to actually make the most of their education, opposed to slaving away on the field or in the weight room? Student athletes should be able to be compensated in some way for their role and should also have a more significant commitment to their education. Student athletes should think of their long-term goals more than short-term gratification, especially when their pro careers are over and they got nothing from their education. The system should be fixed to put the money from TV deals and other endorsements into student athlete benefits, opposed to NCAA officials and members of the athletic departments getting this extra salary. Education should be first priority because athletic careers only last so long, and student athletes will be able to take their education and lessons learned and apply them to the rest of their life. These two political cartoons represent the exploitation that is felt by college basketball and college football players who feel like they are working a full-time job and watching everyone around them but themselves get rich off how they play, even their coaches. The cartoon on the left shows how college athletes drive the vehicle, that is the NCAA, and one athlete asks why they are doing it if they can't make money, receive gifts, or sign endorsement deals. The other athlete responds by saying, "For the education," but he doesn't feel any smarter. This shows how the athlete's time commitment to their sport doesn't allow them to take advantage of the educational opportunities provided by their school. The cartoon on the right shows a small coach counting money starting at $1 million and telling his gigantic player looming over him to hit the weight room. The coach has 0.1% on his hat for college coach's salary, and the player has a 99.9% on his jersey for unpaid athletes. This cartoon represents how since college athletes can't be paid, their coaches are getting huge salaries off of the money that is made because of the players. Both of these cartoons represent the exploitation of student athletes by the NCAA and their schools and the hardships they face.